everybody. Welcome back to CCAL Heartland's Heart to Heart interviews. Today, I'm so excited. We have the legendary Mr. Marvin Nodiff. Hi, Marvin. How are you?
Good. Hi, Kathy.
Yes. Thanks for saying yes and agreeing to do this.
You bet.
So let's get started. I think it's from the very beginning, but I'm going to ask you anyway. How long have you been involved with CAI?
Fortunately or otherwise, I may hold the record for longevity. I first encountered CAI in law school when I was volunteering to work with the state legislature on the Uniform Condo Act.
Okay.
The whole project took like 3.5 years, but we got tremendous support from attorneys who had worked on the Uniform Act and were members of CAI. And in that, Bob Diamond in particular in Washington, D.C., Bob told me about CAI. So I was still in law school. And as soon as I graduated, I went to the first law seminar I could. And like 1984, put a year on it. I think that was my first law seminar.
That's great.
And found out about the local chapters and then researched how to start one. So we started the activity of forming a chapter about 1985, finalized it in 86.
Yes, we just had our anniversary here. It was in October, I think, of 86, right? I think that's what our paperwork says. So yeah, we just had, what was that, 35 years? That's amazing.
Incredible.
So thanks for starting it.
Yeah. Some of the early folks, we had to have, I forget, 7 or 9 people on the board, the initial board, to qualify. And we have, representatives from different parts, different sectors of the industry. Bob O'Connor, Karen's father, was one, and Bob was really important. Tom Wilhite. And we needed someone from government. So I asked Dan McGuire, who's an alderman in the city of St. Louis. And that may sound strange, since all our, so many of our members are from suburban areas, the St. Charles area. But at the time, one of the driving forces behind the Uniform Condo Act was the conversions of existing apartment buildings, which was happening in St. Louis City and the inner communities, Clayton, for example, U City, that sort of thing. So Dan was a good fit, Dan McGuire, to help us get started. And we needed 25 members as a minimum to get started. So
how'd you do that? Did you just recruit people and just get on the phone and just ask people to join? How did that happen? Really, it's because it's hard to get people to join sometimes when they don't know who we are. So
it was a totally new concept, and in many cases we had to introduce ourselves. Mm-hmm. As opposed to having manager, client, and attorney-client connections already, we had to go find them. Wow. Twist their arms, but we got to 25 and we started the chapter.
That's great. And I think Tony Sukinik and I think Linda Schweppe was one of the early ones too.
Yes,
I think they were both pretty early too. That's
great. They were helpful, and Barb Murray.
Yeah, that's great. So I was going to ask you who encouraged you to get more involved in the chapter in CI, but it sounds like your friend from CI that you just mentioned. It sounds like he kind of encouraged you to join and start a chapter.
Oh, yeah. It was enough. It was enough when Bob told me about CAI, and I learned more about what the chapters did throughout the country. And so it was, I didn't need any more motivation than that, because I saw the need for educating and contacting, being in touch with board members, and helping them in that sense. And at the same time, when we contacted them, some of them connected and said, yes, perfect, we need that.
That's great. So I know everyone's been facing crazy times right now because of COVID, but what do you think is the most challenging thing like that's happening right now in the industry? I know you still follow, the different groups in CEI. So any advice you can share with us or anything that you want to tell us that you think that's impacting the industry right now?
Yeah, Kathy, it's not a novel thought, but it's a vital one, I think, and that's the nature of how we communicate with each other and the lack of civility. It's been emerging over the past few years. And one thing I think we've learned as leaders, and I've got a political science background, that behavior of political leaders percolates down from Washington down the state level. We see it in the city, at city and county levels, and people pick up these behavioral traits. And if anything, I think the pandemic has exposed more of those raw type feelings. And I think the most important challenge is for boards and managers who are in the trenches, because they go to the meetings every month, to address how we communicate, how we make decisions as a group. So, we are really self-governing at a very intimate level, the neighborhood, the community, and how we treat each other, how we behave and make rational decisions is probably the most challenging thing, I think, in our industry.
I agree. I think that's a great point, that everyone kind of has those raw feelings right now. So it's important to be kind to each other. Absolutely. Do you have a favorite CEI Heartland event that we do every year, one that you like to go to?
Oh yeah, I think my favorite events have been the trade shows and the manager receptions.
Yeah.
The trade shows give an opportunity for our vendors to show their stuff.
Yeah.
And to talk face to face with managers and board members. And I always enjoyed talking to people selling, the latest deck material or new roofing material. That was great fun and informative.
Yeah.
And then the manager reception really allows people to have a great way to network informally, outside the structure of a program.
Yeah.
So those are valuable.
Yeah, I agree. I've been hearing that a lot. A lot of people like those same events too. So I guess we're keeping good stuff coming, right?
Yeah.
Do you have
we don't have one for attorneys, do we?
No. Well, yeah. Well,
scared of attorneys.
Do you have a favorite CEI Heartland memory, or it can even be just a CEI memory that you want to share? I know you've gotten lots of awards over the years and recognized on the national stage as well as the chapter stage. So I know that's probably a hard one to pick.
Oh gosh, my involvement in CEI, in the 90s, I was on a number of committees for CEI National. We did policy committees, and I was on a couple of other committees and special projects. I served on the board for 6 years. And during that time, we had 2 conferences a year that the board went to and had business meetings, and a retreat. So there's a lot of travel. And plus, as a board member, I was asked to make chapter visits. So I went to and spoke at Colorado Springs, Cincinnati, Charleston, South Carolina, representing CAI and bringing the message to them and talking with them and learning more about what they do. But the most daunting thing, I think, was getting the chapter started. I mean, we were starting from scratch. We had to find people to invite to our programs. We had to find speakers, we had to find topics, we had to find content, we had to find a venue, and then we had to figure out the beverages and refreshments.
Yeah.
So all of that, and we had an all volunteer board, so we split it up. I remember Tony Sikonik and I hauling in cases of water and Coke and stuff like that to our early meetings.
That's awesome. I love it. I know that when I came on like 13 years ago, we were doing things at Brentwood Forest Condominium Association. So Where were some where did you guys do those early meetings at? I don't know. I don't think I've ever asked you that.
Yeah, Brentwood Forest was a great venue for us. They were so helpful and centrally located.
Yeah.
And with parking and all of that. But the first couple of programs, we were searching for the right topic, something that people would find in common and interesting and important. And the best early program we had, I think, was on liability, where we scared people to death. About, different kinds of liability that they could be exposed to and insurance coverage for those.
Yeah, that's funny that you say that, because anytime we do insurance or any kind of legal roundtables, people get scared at those too. So I think that's funny that still stands true.
Yeah, right.
Do you? If I know you've probably done your CEI sales pitch a zillion times, but if you were to encourage a board to join CEI, like what would you say to them?
Oh, a couple of things. One is that they have to set aside their particular passion or point of view, and many people are lay persons, so they need to be open to constant learning, and larger communities need to have professional management. And I mentioned before, management, the managers are the ones who are at the table at the monthly meetings. The attorneys aren't. So it's really on the manager's shoulders to be the professional at the table. And for boards to be diligent about seeking that advice and understanding it.
Absolutely. That's great. Tell us, our members, something that we might not expect to know about you that you want to share. Do you have anything that you want to tell us?
Well, maybe something professional as well as personal.
Yeah.
Professionally, I did not go to law school directly out of college.
Oh. Okay.
I got my master's in history and political science from Mizzou because I wanted to work in government. And I was fortunate enough to get a job in state government. I worked in the auditor's office. And no, I was not an auditor, not a number cruncher. I wrote the reports. I'd sit down with the field auditors and I read their reports, their findings. And I'd say, okay, guys, what are you trying to say? And I put it into plain English. The value of that experience was that we looked at not just financial auditing, not just budgetary stuff, how they spent stuff, whether it was proper, but we looked at the extent to which they were effective and efficient in carrying out their statutory duties, efficiency and effectiveness. And it's something that performance approach really helped when I began working with community associations. Later, I worked in the governor's office for several years and a DNR. And in that process, we were looking at serious natural resource issues, for one example. I also worked in some of the criminal justice issues. And it was, the process, the decision-making process, where we had different interest groups coming in to wanting to be at the table, wanting to be listened to, wanting to be taken into account. And their positions and their supporting data all became part of a decision-making process. So anyway, after about 10 years after school, I decided to go to law school because I wanted a reliable career as opposed to working in the state government.
Yeah.
But when I started practicing, I realized how much of that experience helps with community associations. These are small self-governing entities. They involve group decision-making. P.S. They don't teach that in law school. So we learned by experience, but we also learned from from studies and programs and sessions on how attorneys can deal with multiple personalities and so on. That kind of group decision-making characteristic that is so important. I mean, that's how we operate. That's how we operate, and that's how we bring in different viewpoints to the table and sort through the best policy, and deal with different personalities, different agendas, and that sort of thing. So that's really that's an aspect of the practice that our clients are so unique.
Mm-hmm.
This is true for attorneys and community managers and insurance professionals. It's true for any of us dealing with this type of decision-making apparatus, this structure.
Good.
So I don't remember what the question was, but I sort of tried to answer it.
Yeah, no, you did good. You did great. Do you have a crazy story that you want to share with us about your history with community associations, or one that you can share with us, I guess I should say?
Well, overall, the types of cases that attorneys get are things that are so bizarre or so contentious that the board and the manager can't figure out a way to resolve it. So we maybe get 10% of the 10% that's the worst disputes.
Yeah.
And we ran into a unique situation that involved an HOA where the streets were public, but the restrictions were private, and there were restrictions on the length of vehicles that could be parked, particularly trucks, that could be parked on the street. So we had an owner who was violating this in the sense that her boyfriend was not parking in the garage, and he had this big truck, a pickup. So that went to court. And we tried the case and we won. The legal issue being whether the private restrictions are still enforceable, although the streets are public.
Mm-hmm.
And they appealed it. And we argued it in the Court of Appeals.
Wow. I
mean, it's really it's an important legal point, but it's kind of a minor situation. So the backstory of our cases becomes as important. I think the attorneys and managers need to understand the backstory, because maybe we can get it resolved. And the funny thing, at the end, I asked the attorney for this woman owner what incentivized them to take the case so far. And he said that the owner's mother was so concerned that the daughter could not find another boyfriend, that they wanted to keep him and allow his truck to be parked on the street in violation of our regulation. So,
wow.
And on the other hand, here you had the boyfriend who values his truck more than his relationship.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know, it was just bizarre to learn that backstory at the end, that the whole thing was financed by mom, who was worried about her daughter and her boyfriend.
Oh, goodness. That's a good one. Well, now comes the point where I ask you some rapid fire questions. So Marvin got the favorites category. So you ready?
No, but go ahead.
That's the fun of it. What's your favorite St. Louis restaurant?
My favorite restaurant. I have a two-part. I think I have a two-part answer to that. One is anything on the hill. I mean, I love Nodiff's. However, here's the second part. My favorite kind of place is the neighborhood cafe, the small bar and grill, because that's where people in the neighborhood go.
That's good.
They bond together. They exercise their bonds as a community, as neighbors with common interests. And I mean, there are places like places on the hill, like Connolly's Tavern For example, I think it's just south of Forest Park in Dogtown.
Yeah.
And Filoni's on Manchester that I like to go to because they have a whole different feel. You don't go for the food necessarily, you go for the company.
Oh, I like that. That's good. Good point. I have to remember to go to the Hill more. We don't do that as often as we should. So now you're just like you're triggering that in me that I need to do that more.
Kathy, St. Louis has great cuisine.
They do.
Great cuisine, and I tried to give it a plug in my fiction because I set different scenes whenever possible. I set different scenes in small restaurants that I think are good to expose the St. Louis cuisine.
We've got a lot of really good ones. But that's a hard question. I think I already know the answer to this one, but I'm going to ask anyway. What is your favorite hobby?
I have several. One thing I picked up when I was working at Department of Natural Resources was floating and float fishing.
Okay, I didn't know that.
I'll bet that I've floated more streams in Missouri, streams, rivers, creeks, little rivulets, anything that'll take a canoe, than anybody else in the chapter.
Wow, I didn't know that. That's great.
Yeah, that's part of my job, and along with it, fishing. And my wife treated me to. We were out in Wyoming, and she bought me a fly rod and gave me lessons. I went to Cody, Wyoming.
Wow.
To a fishing tackle store, and had my first fly fishing lessons. And so I've used that at Missouri's got four rivers with trout. And photography has long been one of my favorite hobbies.
I thought you were going to say writing. That was my first guess, because how many novels have you wrote now? Several.
Seven.
Wow.
7.
That's amazing.
Yeah, 7.
That's great.
It's fun, but that's over, a period of like 21 years. It's not exactly John Grisham speed. I mean, he turns out something once a year. But
still, though, that's really impressive. I haven't even wrote one, so I think it's great. What's your favorite thing to watch on TV right now? Do you watch a lot of TV or any TV?
I have a few favorite programs. I like to watch a program called Bull because it's a jury selection expert, and I like that show. It's intriguing.
What channel? I haven't seen that one. Is that on prime time, or is it on cable?
We're giving a plug for Bull. Yeah, it's on CBS.
Okay.
Nights.
I'll check that one out. Okay. What's your favorite holiday?
That's tough. In a sense, it's Halloween. Not that I go out and put on a mask and trick or treat, but seeing all the kids come.
Yeah. And
the joy that they have, and the care that they've taken, the thought that they put into their costumes, and mom and dad are there, waiting on the weeds, making sure the kid doesn't fall down the steps or whatever. And I asked the kid, it is trick or treat, so give me a trick.
Yeah.
And some of them come prepared with jokes and that sort of thing. So
good. Yeah,
it's fun. It's fun to be part of.
Yeah. I like that one too. I always love handing out, out the candy and seeing all the trick-or-treaters too. I'm the same way. What's your favorite place that you've traveled to?
Italy. Yeah. It's just you feel the companionship of the people and plus the awesome history that's there and blended into the current present time, and the culture and the cuisine. In some ways they're much more relaxed not so material possession oriented. Perhaps I think they have a different values in their lifestyle that we could use here in America.
I like that. I've never been, so now I need to go. Since you said that. Here's a good one. What was your favorite toy as a child? Did you have a favorite?
My bicycle.
Good one. Yeah.
I think now I went through the toy pistol in my head. I went through the toy pistol and my cowboy hat, my cowboy boots, because I grew up out in Phoenix. But I think the favorite one was the bicycle, and my favorite is because it gave me mobility as a kid.
Yeah.
And second, it's transferable to later life. I mean, up to just recently, I was biking all over the place. And there's a great path in Forest Park that, and now I love the greenways that we have through this nonprofit organization that has bike trails just about everywhere. It's a great network.
That's great. I think the good part about having a bike as a kid too, it gives you that independence to feel like you're going someplace on your own too. Yeah, I agree. Bike, that's a good one. Do you have a favorite day of the week?
Right now it's Saturday because that's when the college football comes on.
Okay.
But, it shifts seasonally.
Do you have a favorite team? Now I'm going to ask you that since you said that. Do you have a favorite team?
Well, yeah, the Cardinals and and the Tigers.
There you go. Well, especially since you are an alumni of Mizzou, so I didn't know that either. So that's awesome.
Yeah, I have a lot of alma maters. I don't know whether that's good or bad. I went to junior college, and I really support that option, that opportunity. It's great for students who don't have a good feel and no need really to figure out what their career is.
Yeah.
Because you learn the basic stuff in 2 years, you transfer those credits. So beyond that, I went to Arizona State University and got my bachelor's in Mizzou, and then SLU Law.
Yay. What is your favorite board game? Do you like to play games?
I enjoyed Monopoly.
Yeah, that's a good one.
Monopoly is good, and yeah.
That's a good one. That's a good one. So at the end of the interview, sometimes I ask people to, do a 30-second sales pitch about their company or their favorite charity or anything that you want to talk about. So how would you like to wrap it up, Marvin? Tell us something that you want us to know.
I am extremely proud of how the chapter has grown. Not just in numbers, but in what you do. I think that all of us as managers or attorneys have an obligation to give back to the community. So in that sense, I'm very proud of some of the things that the chapter is doing in raising funds and toys and whatnot for important organizations that do important work. And I may have retired from active practice, but I haven't left, and I'm still, what I've done, I've helped so many communities over the years throughout the state, and I'll come back to my own neighborhood and volunteering my time on important issues that face the residential community, such as I live in. So those are the kinds of things I certainly want to, spotlight the chapter and how it's grown and how proud I am of what you guys have done.
You know what? And it all started with you, Marvin. So we are so proud. Everybody knows you on the national level. So I think you're like our claim to fame in the Heartland chapter. So we're so happy that you started it all and everything that you've done to make our chapter successful. And I'm just honored that you said yes to this interview.
Kathy, I'll tell you something funny. St. Louis Magazine, the current issue, November, published the list of best lawyers in St. Louis.
Really? Okay.
Yeah, some issues are best doctors, and God knows who puts the list together. But for the attorneys, it's put together by some organization called Best Lawyers, and it's based on colleague reviews. So in that sense, I mean, it's not, it's a great reflection on the integrity, competence, how you're viewed by your peers, that sort of thing. And I was listed in there.
That's great.
The current best lawyers under community association lawyer.
Yay.
Even though I've been retired for 7 years. Now, I want to make a point that I should not be the only one from our group on that list.
Oh.
Where are you guys?
Yeah.
You're busy.
And so, I mean, like, that's like a huge testimony to you too. 7 years retired and you still made the list. That's bragging rights if I've ever heard it. That's amazing. I'll have to go and and get the magazine. That's great. Congratulations on that. And again, thank you for everything that you've done for, our chapter and on the national platform, and, all the research that you've done for the Research Foundation, everything that you've done. We are so thankful.
It's been a labor of love. It still continues.
Yeah. Well, thank you again. And we hope to see everybody next time on Heart to Heart interviews with CCAL Heartland. Thanks, Marvin.
Thank you, Kathy.